And thank you all so much for joining. This is the second in our communications webinar series. We are so excited to have Nick Dotson from Forum One here to talk about social media and how you can use it in your work to communicate with different stakeholders and audiences. And I think Nick has a full introduction in his presentation, so I will pass it over to him. But excited to have this session to talk about all of the different ways in which you are communicating and how social media can fit into that strategy. We know that's something that's come up throughout the last few years of the BBBRC work. And I know on a personal note, Nick has been really great in helping the community of practice think through how we use social media. So excited to hear his insights today.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Pearl, and thank you all for letting me join you today. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen share set up here, and then we'll get rolling. Alrighty, so as Pearl said, my name is Nick Dotson. I'm from Forum One, digital strategist here, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself in a second. But we've been working with the Building Better Regions community of practice on their social media, and so we wanted to share some tips with you all as well that you can incorporate in your work. And really today it's going to be kind of focused on more of the foundations of social media, not necessarily picking on any platform, by itself, just looking more holistically. So yeah, let's get it rolling. Alrighty, so Forum One. So we are a digital services agency. We're experts in digital strategy, design, technology, and data. We have partnered with over 1,000+ organizations on over 2,500 projects spanning government, cultural institutions, economic development work like we're doing here, all sorts of different types of mission-driven organizations. So really kind of working with a broad scope. We have done this for over 25 years. And really what's core to our mission is turning ideas into impact, right? So thinking about how we can kind of get the most out of the digital work we're doing so that we can help folks all across the board. Oh, so a little bit about me. I'm a digital strategist at Forum One. I'm originally from Wisconsin, went to UW-Madison there, studied digital strategy, and since have worked on progressive campaigns doing social media there for candidates across the board from mayors to senators. And also at Forum One, I do digital strategy and social media for some of our largest government clients. So that's a little bit about me. And now we'll move into today's plan. So first off, we're going to talk about exploring the social media landscape more as a whole. So really looking collectively, thinking about, what is kind of shaping the social media landscape today. Both.
Jen was supposed to be on here too. Where is she?
Oh, I thought I heard it echoing.
It looks like we've got someone coming through here. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat or anything, and we'll make sure to get to those at the end. So looking holistically at the landscape, thinking about the different channels that we have available to us, as well as different consumer trends shaping how we use social media. Then we're going to look at why you should be on social media. So just the basic, high level benefits of being on social. Then we're going to move on to how you can actually take advantage of those benefits. So managing and growing your social media presence. And then thinking about how we can kind of over time, adjust that presence for the most success possible, right? And lastly, we'll close off just with a quick note about paid social media. I would say, this will primarily be focused on the organic part. So the stuff that we don't have to pay for necessarily, but it's definitely important to talk about paid social as well. So I think all of us at this point are aware at some level that social media is a pretty critical part of our lives, right? It shapes how we communicate daily with each other. It shapes how we learn about new things, whether it's, finding a new video on TikTok or learning about something going on in our community, or even just how we function in society. So we can think about all sorts of important stuff in our lives from, thinking about how we, talk about our politics, right? Talk about our economy. These are all happening on social media now. And so it's critical to us to understand this tool and understand it, in relation to our work as well, right? So first we want to kind of think about, all of the choices that are out there. So often, the first question with social media is, what platform should I be on? What channel should I be on? And I'd really encourage you all to consider these channels within 3 different factors. The first is going to be your audience base, right? So a channel like Snapchat is gonna generally trend younger than channels like Facebook or Twitter or X, right? So thinking about, who's on these platforms and why are they on there? Next, I want you to think about the content formats. So, you may have a team that's got really great video video experience. Maybe you're going to be more on TikTok, right, than you are on X. So that's the content format aspect of it. And lastly, we want to think about community engagement formats. So one great example is our community of practice, right? So here we have, our page that is public. We have our LinkedIn page, right? Anyone can access this, whether you're in the community or not. And we've also tried out more closed community formats. So would definitely encourage you all, if you're not in our LinkedIn group, to go check that out as an example. But also we've tried out Slack as well. And so really thinking about, these three factors when picking a channel is going to help you out a lot. It's going to help you to decide, what's going to be the best fit, both for your team and the work you do, but then also for the audience you're looking to meet. So I just wanted to ask quickly, just give you all a second to chime in, what platforms are we using right now? Go ahead and drop it in the chat quick, and just tell us a little bit about the platforms that you're on for your economic development work. I'll give us all a minute here, just to get typing. LinkedIn, okay, I'm seeing a lot of LinkedIn. Some Instagram too. Nice. Instagram's always cool. It's a good visual option. LinkedIn's starting to get a little bit more visual with its stuff, competing with TikTok, but Instagram's still kind of the king there. Well, cool. We'll keep moving on. Feel free to keep chiming in there. I think it's always helpful to see, what folks are using. We can definitely talk about it, once we move to questions, more individual channels, and I'd be interested to hear more. So, in addition to the proliferation of social media options, we've also got changing user behaviors too, right? And different dynamics that are going on with these platforms. So first is going to be Gen Z. I'm on the borderline of Gen Z myself. I'm born in 1999, so one of the first generations to grow up, completely online, right? And so that's come with its, upsides and downsides. I think our generation is really starting to come into its own power on social media and on the internet and shape how we want to be engaged with and engage with others online. So really, this is kind of evolving into more kind of private scenarios on social media. We're seeing folks shift away from that more public social feed use, maybe not talking as much to each other there, and then going into, group chats or DMs. We're also seeing new types of social media platforms emerge that are more focused on these in-the-moment experiences, right? So we can think of Snapchat, or maybe you all have heard of folks using a platform called Be Real. That's a platform where, once a day you're asked to go post a picture of what you're doing, and only your friends that you've added can see that, right? So it's a very private, in the moment, more intimate experience. We can also think about platforms like Discord too, right? Where we're creating these closed loop communities. So really kind of reshaping this, I think in a lot of ways reacting to, a lot of the mental health downsides of social media, and also kind of the proliferation of advertising on social media as well, right? So that's one factor that's shaping how we're kind of changing our relationship. The other is also changing dynamics. I don't think anyone here would probably be unfamiliar with the fact that, Elon Musk has bought Twitter and changed that to X, right? That is an example of how, this ownership is really kind of driving audiences to new social media options, such as Twitter alternatives, but then also, other competitors out there too, like LinkedIn, right? So we're seeing new platforms emerge, but then also people moving across different platforms based on, moral stances, or also just different experiences that they're having. Lastly, there's just simply more competition. And I think TikTok really kind of hammers this home. So TikTok, a platform that many of us weren't thinking about or talking about a few years ago, has now become the go-to for most of us when we're consuming information. Unless maybe you're working with the government, then maybe you're probably not going to have it on your phone, But otherwise, folks are going on there, and it's really taking up a lot of user time that used to be spent on these other platforms. And so now everybody's fighting for this, right? We see Facebook introducing more video, Instagram's going there too. They want to make money And the way they make money is by selling your time on the platform to advertisers, right? So they want to have, as many people on there as possible, as frequently as possible. And that's just kind of changing generally the landscape and, shifting things in ways that we haven't seen before. So next we'll talk about why you should be on social media, especially during this crazy time. I think, the benefits here are pretty clear. It's an opportunity to demonstrate your coalition's expertise and show the value of your economic work to your community and your stakeholders. It's also an opportunity to stay informed on trends, whether it's in economic development itself, so thinking best practices here, the industries that you're operating in, of course, news in our communities, right? And more. And then lastly, just building those deeper relationships with current supporters and being able to put ourselves out there and our mission in front of new folks, right? So that we can earn their trust and turn them into advocates for the work we're doing. So some really great benefits there. And we'll talk about how we can kind of unlock those now. And really this comes down to 3 different factors here. The first is going to be creating your profile. That's going to be the baseline for all the work we're doing here, right? That's where your branding will come through, your messaging, your tone of voice, all these things that make your organization, your coalition, whatever you're working on, who you are, right? And so that's kind of the first thing we want to consider. Next, we have posting on social media. So we'll talk about how we can create great content that engages, inspires. And lastly, we'll talk about how to do some of that engaging on other people's content ourselves, right? So think about these 3 key activities when we're really getting started on our social media journey. So first is creating your profile. Like I said, this is really the foundation. It's the first thing people are going to see when they look at your, coalition on social media, right? So we really want to get kind of a great introduction going. So it's key that we're using all the features to fully represent our work, not only so that we can show people what's going on, but also so that we can show social media, because we want to think about these platforms as search engines too, right? That are trying to figure out who we are, so that we can show them, this information that they can use so they can help people find us easier. So, you want to think about all these different features, right? So your profile and banner photos. I really like having, a profile photo with a really clear logo, something that's going to be easily kind of as a symbol for the work we're doing, right? So thinking about really clear branding there. Also for the banner photos, I feel like this is where we can get a little bit more adventurous. We can do kind of cooler things because we have a little bit more real estate. I've seen folks do really great collages there. So thinking about all the different ways you could show off your work, whether it be, pieces of your community, the industry that you're operating in, right? Whatever you're trying to do, you could paint a really interesting picture there with a collage. You could also use, for example, just a really nice kind of landscape picture of your community. Mine is the city of Chicago, where I'm at. Just things to show off the personality of your brand, right? And then next we want to think about what we're writing. So, thinking about headlines and bios. This is really important. Think about, what's the one-shot thing that's going to tell you my why, right? Like why we're existing and why we're here on social media, trying to talk to you and get your support. So we also want to think about, if we can include any keywords there that folks might frequently use to find us, that'll help as well. And the about section, is also really where we can kind of expand on this, more of maybe a mission statement, more information about what we're doing in more specific terms, right? So really telling, a clear picture there, and then really using any customizable features that we can. These will vary by your platform. On LinkedIn, your company page, you may be able to have a life section. You may be able to have, featured content. These are things that, we can use to make our profiles more robust and tell our story a little bit better. So next is posting on social media. I think this is a really fun part. Setting up your profile is, maybe a one-time activity and we're doing it, adjusting it, every few months. But posting on social media is iterative and we're really adjusting every day to figure out how we can best meet people and talk to people. And so in a lot of ways, it's a little bit of science and a little bit of art, right? Because we're trying out these different messages, we're getting data back, and then we're adjusting. So really, there's no right or wrong answer when we're doing this. So I won't sit here and tell you, you need to have this many characters in your post and it needs to have X amount of videos, right? Or whatever. Really, the only rules are, being consistent, relevant, and valuable. And so what we mean by that is being consistent both in terms of your posting frequency, so how often you're posting online, but then also thinking, is this a reasonable amount, right, for my team to be creating? We don't want to start and stop. That's the worst thing we could do. So let's be consistent. We want to think about being relevant. So, am I meeting my audience in the moment that they're in with the needs that they have? And how can I best do that? And then lastly is valuable. So what unique insight do I have to bring to the table that nobody else can, right? And so we want to think about those three factors. So how you can get started on doing this. So this is kind of my basic process that I would tell pretty much anyone to do with their social media work. First is going to be, you want to determine that reasonable posting amount and content creation schedule, so that consistency part of it. So thinking about, how many team members do we have? What kind of tools do we have available to us to, make graphics, right? Or to help write, things like that. And then just generally, how much time do we want to invest in this work? So thinking about that, thinking about the content creation schedule. Some folks like to create content in the moment, so making a new post once every day. Some folks like to batch content out. I can tell you that's what we do here for the Building Better Regions Community of Practice. And that's a way to kind of, get things planned out a week in advance, or be a little bit more ready, right? But that's all going to depend on your team and just the type of work style you have, and the time you have to put into this. Next, I would say identify your coalition's realms of expertise. These are going to be topics that you can comfortably and consistently discuss. So for us, we could think about, our community. We can always go back to our communities and talk about this. We can talk about the industry that we might be operating in, the specific interests our coalition might have. For example, maybe equity is a big focus of our work too, in addition to just generally doing great economic development work. These are things that we can all draw on frequently. We can speak to confidently, and we can return to them, and talk about them with our audiences. So think about, maybe 3 to 5 topics that you can come back to. We don't want them to be too in-depth, and we don't want them to be too broad to the point where they don't even make sense, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a Goldilocks thing here that we want to think about. So next, we want to identify those sources of information that can kind of give us content that fits those topics. So, thinking about local news outlets, different individuals within our community that we look to kind of push our messaging. These are places that we can go to online to gain some inspiration and some starting points for our content. And then once we've identified these sources, we can come back to them with frequency, right? And we can say, okay, this is a really great blog post that I found. We'll share this today. Here's a great post that I want to reshare from a partner within our network. And now that we know our topics that we can speak to, we can say, okay, here's our perspective on this and provide our own unique value to this post that it didn't have before. And so that's how we can start creating content that is going to be a little bit engaging with folks and is going to, kind of be reasonable in terms of just making it, right? So we're not giving ourselves these huge headaches, every week when we look on LinkedIn and we're like, oh yeah, I have to make content now for this. So next, I just want to give you all some content ideas. So, there's just 4 right here. I think, I would love to hear different ideas you all have in a second. But some really easy go-to ones here, right? So industry insights, thinking about, what's going on in my industry, what are any new developments that I could share about that folks may not know about, or that we have a unique perspective on. So, Harlan Robotics could share, a new report covering robotics and manufacturing, right? Like that would be an interesting opportunity to tie it back to our work. We have original content as well. So Osceola County just did a fantastic webinar. I know because I was able to watch it a little bit as I was uploading it. And you all could, take that webinar, you could turn it into a blog post, and then you could turn that blog post into social media posts, right? Like think about how we can repurpose the content that we're creating too to really get the most lifespan out of it. We all have great success stories to tell. I'm lucky enough to have seen a lot of those recently too. So I know we could take all of those and we could go online and we could talk about the great work we're doing there. And lastly is just that curated content, right? So thinking about, are there any voices that we can amplify within our network, or even folks that are outside of our network that we know are trusted voices? So people that, generally they vibe, they gel with our brand, and they're not going to be, a brand risk if we share their content, and they're people that we trust. So those are all some great examples there. We'll make sure we have the slides uploaded on the resource library too, so you can come back to these. But now I'd like to ask, another quick check-in. Does anyone have any stories on their mind that they might be able to tell on social media, having seen these examples?
I'll jump in with one from the community of practice while people are thinking of their examples. I know with the 2-year celebration coming up in Wichita, we've been talking a lot, as you said, Nick, about, celebrating different stories, both from the coalitions, but I think one of the things we hear a lot are people talking about how they've made connections across the country with others doing similar work through the community practice, and how those connections have helped them further their work. So I know the manufacturing mini COP met this week and had people presenting on their projects. We had a presentation from the Accelerate North Carolina Coalition on VR virtual reality and how they're using it for workforce training, and other people across the country were able to say, oh, like that's work that we do too, or that's work we'd love to get into it. And so talking about those opportunities and those stories.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Pearl. I'm seeing some other great ones in here. Shift 2.0, that was a great program. I did see that on LinkedIn. So really great work there. Jazz has seen, yeah, groundbreaking ceremonies, always great. Awesome. Well, yeah, those are just some ideas. I think you all have fantastic stories you can tell. I know you do for the most parts. I've seen a lot of them. So let's keep telling those, and let's use this today to kind of get those out there into the world and get them in front of more people, right? So now we'll look to, engaging, right? So we're thinking about social media, both in, how we can get our message out there, but then we also want to make sure we're being social, right? It's a big part of social media is talking to folks. And so we want to post consistently and be reacting to other people's content, right? And so that means, commenting often and early, using those mentions and hashtags, and then starting and joining discussions whenever possible. So first with commenting, commenting is really the highest form of engagement on social media, both in terms of just, interacting with folks, but then also in terms of providing kind of an algorithm boost to the content that we're engaging with. So when we comment, we want to be sure that we're commenting as soon as possible. One great way that you can do this, if you're trying to work with your partners to amplify a message, is being like, okay, Pearl, like you're going to post this thing and then you're going to tell us all about it so we can hop on LinkedIn or whatever right away and start engaging. Because really we want to think about, virality on a social media post, kind of being a snowball, right? Going down this mountain, as it goes down, it gets bigger and bigger, more and more reach on our posts. We can push it and we can make it go down a little bit quicker and gain more momentum when we put that engagement on these posts, when we like them, when we give these comments and stuff. And so commenting often and early is the best way to do that. So, can be just adding some insight, being like, this is a really interesting post. It made me think of this thing that happened, or this best practice that I know of. Or it can just be as simple as saying, like, congrats, you guys are doing a fantastic job. We're here to cheer you on. Here's, a clapping emoji or whatever you want to put, right? So it can be as high or low level of effort as you really want it to. But really want to think about, putting ourselves out there with more than just that little like or reaction, right? And so being out there, being present, showing up, folks can see that you're commenting on posts, right? So they understand, okay, this is a person who's supporting me, but then their audience can see you as well and come back and check out your mission. Next is mentions and hashtags. So wherever possible, when we're talking about someone, we want to make sure that they know we're talking about them. And so we want to make sure we're using the @ sign wherever we can to just, at individual users and organizations, partners as well. Just making sure, that folks are aware. And so then they can retweet our stuff, they can repost us, they can give their comments to us. And then thinking about hashtags, this is a great way to make sure you're in the right conversations and spaces on social media. So if we're talking about, something that has more of a focus on equity, making sure we use like a hashtag equity, that can be a great way to get us in that conversation online and get us in front of people who would not have maybe found us otherwise had they not been interested in that specific topic, right? So a great way to, kind of focus your conversation and then expand yourself into new audiences. And lastly, we just want to think about starting and joining discussions in any way possible. So we can do things in our posts that can start discussions, right? We can provide prompts both in the writing, so posting a question to foster engagement, or we can use different post formats. So polls can be a great way to kind of get some quick, easy engagement, maybe get people talking. Different, kind of video prompts we can do as well. So just interesting ways to think about, how can I get you to want to talk to me, right? And then when we see stuff like this out in the wild, I would really encourage us, okay, now that we know kind of what we're doing, the work that goes into creating these posts, we can be a little bit more appreciative of the need to kind of respond to them, right? And so we can, post, we can start conversations with folks. And really, these are all great ways to kind of make sure that we're engaging on social media. And generally, I'd say take just, maybe like 15 minutes every couple days to do an activity like this with your page. And that's going to be a great way to make sure that we're just staying consistent with our engagement. And we're not, sometimes me included, I'll fall into the trap of seeing a notification pop up and then I'll be like, okay, I'm going to just start engaging with people right now, right? But then I forget to do it the next day. So it's nice to have that consistency built in, whether you're putting a calendar block up or it's just something in the back of your head you do for a certain amount of time every once in a while. So now we'll talk about how we can measure the success of this work. Obviously, we want to make sure that whatever time we're investing is paying itself back to us, right? So we want to make sure that this work is paying off. And with social media, we get a lot of really great data that can help us out and help us to understand how we're going to improve our posts over time. And things don't have to be perfect right out of the door. Social media is going to be iterative. So think about how we can just kind of adjust things, whether it's adjusting language, maybe coming up with new graphic templates, different ideas that can really help us kind of dial in on our messaging and on how we, reach our audience. So these are some valuable stats to consider over time. Follower growth, of course, we want to make sure that our accounts are growing, right? That we're reaching new people and talking to new audience members. Impressions are a similar kind of measure of our reach. So an impression literally is just the number of times there was eyeballs on your post. So one person can give you 2 impressions if they've seen your post 2 times, right? So different than what we might think of. A different metric might be reach. And that's generally going to be more of a 1-to-1 metric. So you reach one person. But both overall are helpful to understand kind of how you're expanding your audience and how large the audience is that you're talking to. Next, we can think of engagements and engagement rates. These are more of, okay, we're talking to this many people. How many of those people actually, are really interested and engaged with what we're saying, right? And so when we think about that, I would really encourage you all to think of engagement rates as kind of the highest priority metric probably for your work. What we're doing is pretty focused, right? Like we do want to have a large audience, but really it's more important that that audience is really invested in our work and talking about us and excited to talk about us, I would say. And so, I would look at these metrics. Typically, folks take metrics monthly and then look at it and evaluate it. I know that's what we do here. We do have some great resources linked here. I would also encourage you all to think about your metrics in relation to your larger communications goals and your communications plan. And of course, last month we had a great communications plan webinar, right? And so definitely go and check that out on our YouTube as well and go revisit that. I would highly encourage you all to do that and think of, social media as one tool in your arsenal. We want to think holistically as well about how it fits in with that entire communications plan. So lastly, we'll talk about paid social media. It's no secret, it's more difficult to get, traffic to your social media pages on more mature platforms nowadays, right? Facebook, Instagram, those meta platforms, as well as Twitter, I would say are kind of the most mature platforms when we're thinking about kind of maturity levels and where we're at in the lifespan of a social media platform. And that means that they're really trying to get a return on all of the money that they've put in building these platforms, right, for their shareholders. And that is coming from paid media. And so these platforms are pushing paid media more than others have. And because of that, it's, harder to get that organic reach. So we do need to be aware of paid media as an option, especially if we have a high priority campaign, or it's a big moment for us, right? We want to make sure that we are able to talk about it, and get it in front of folks, even if we have to throw, a little bit of money behind it, right? And so each platform is going to have different options, for advertising. These generally are varying by the content format, where you like to have your ads appear, and the different goals that you have for your advertising campaign. And by different goals, we're talking about, we want to drive traffic to a website, or I want to get leads, right, to, be able to contact folks, right? These are the goals. And so when you're evaluating, what platforms you want to be on, definitely go back to the framework as well of the audience base, right? The content format, and also the community. But then think about these as in addition, right? Think about these different options. So I would encourage you all to consider social media advertising primarily when you're looking for an affordable option, but then also looking for that highly targeted advertising. More so than any other option available to us, I think social media gives us abilities to target folks in unique ways. Some of this has major downsides, right? Like none of us like our data being used to like spam us with really personalized, creepy ads. But for our work, I think we're doing a lot of good work that's going to help people across the country. And so if we have these tools available to us, I think we should use them to reach those folks. I would definitely much rather have an ad from one of you all than I would from McDonald's, right? And so, think about these different targeting options, such as, being able on LinkedIn to target folks by their different job levels of seniority, or job titles. These are really unique options that we don't have anywhere else. And so, dual-sided coin there, right? But we could take advantage of it if we want to. I would encourage you all, to learn about specific platforms, especially the meta ones, right? Like those are going to be probably the most commonly used ones. But there's great trainings for all of these, and you can even get certified as an ad manager, as well, pretty easily. So great options there to check out. And definitely, something to consider here, right? We need to know about paid social media as much as we do organic. So that brings us to the end of the majority of my presentation here. So really appreciate you all joining me along this ride, and bearing with me as I kind of get to talk about my passion, which is social media. And just wanted to, ask if we have any questions here. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing them today, I get that. It's totally cool. But would love to talk to you more personally as well. So if you want to, you can email me. And I will also have my LinkedIn on the next slide as well with a little recap. We've got thank you. We've got a little extra time, so feel free to drop more questions. But I do want to just recap quick and share some resources. So recap, at a basic level, social media is a key tool in your communications arsenal, right? And so it's important to understand it, both in relation to our personal lives, but then in relation to all of the great work that you all are doing. So, really try and keep up on it just a little bit so we can understand, kind of the how platforms are made, right? How they're designed, but then why things are happening online the way they are. Next, we can use that information that we know, as well as those three factors of our audience base, the community format, and the content format to consider what channels are best for us and our audience. We want to consider, how we can let our branding and our story shine through on our profile and through the content that we're creating. We want to make sure we're being social on social media, so starting and participating in conversations whenever we can. And lastly, just don't be afraid to put stuff out there and measure and iterate, right? So making sure that we're taking some regular data on our social media work, and we're adjusting based on that data. So those are key things to remember here. As I mentioned, my LinkedIn's on here as well. I do talk about, updates on social media pretty often, different things going on in the digital services world. So feel free to follow me there if you want to keep more up to date on different things going on. But then feel free to reach out via email as well. Happy to answer any more specific questions about social media, help out, even if you just want to learn about a feature on a platform, I'm here for you all then in that way too. So definitely encourage y'all to reach out. And then I just wanted to share some tools and some resources that have been helpful for me in my social media journey. You know, it involves continuous learning over time, right? Because these platforms are always changing. So some great sources that you can visit are The Verge and TechCrunch. Those are great news sources to learn about what's happening on platforms. The Verge is probably my favorite overall. I also really like Social Media Examiner. They represent the biggest social media conference, and it's a really great source for more best practices type, you know, content. So learning about how we can really reach folks in effective ways. And then lastly, I recommend Later if you're going to do any sort of more video or visual focused social media work. So thinking, you know, Instagram, which it looks like some of y'all are on, as well as TikTok. That's a really great source there. They're a social media management platform like a Hootsuite or a Sprout Social, if you ever heard of those, but they do have great content too to accompany the work they do. And then, you know, these tools here, I think for the most part, these will be tools that we're kind of familiar with already. But I think it goes to show that for social media, you can really create things with a pretty small arsenal of extra tools. And none of these are really too expensive. So, you know, Canva is fantastic. If you've never designed anything in your life, but you want to, Canva is the place to go. You can do it for videos, for slides, for graphics, whatever you might need. They've got really great trainings as well as really great AI features that they're introducing to help out for more beginner designers. Kyle, you love Canva. I love Canva too. I use it every day, and it is so fantastic. So would highly recognize it or recommend it, and hope that we all can get some experience using that. ChatGPT, don't ever post anything. Please, please, please do not post anything that ChatGPT writes right off the bat. But go ahead and feel free to post something that ChatGPT has written down and that you've edited and checked out and make sure it looks good, right? Like if it feels good with your brand, it feels like something you would say. You can use ChatGPT for copywriting help, or you could just use it for coming up with content ideas. You know, ask ChatGPT to act as your audience member and, you know, tell us, you know, what types of things you might be interested in. That can be a great way to get content ideas. You can ask it to act as, you know, a social media manager, right? And give content ideas in that way. So consider seeing how you can use ChatGPT to come up with new ideas or just to edit your writing. Grammarly is probably my favorite tool out of anything that I use. Canva's great, but Grammarly helps me out probably a little bit more frequently. So you can use that for your emails, for your social media, really for anything that you're ever going to write down on your computer. Grammarly can help you sound a little bit better. And it's also got some AI stuff coming in now too, that you can use to kind of fit your tone a little bit better than Grammarly could in the past. And lastly is a neat tool that a friend who works on other campaigns has told me about, and it's called Remix. So you can take a Twitter post, you can take its URL, and you can just drop it in, and you know, this Remix app will turn that post into a nice little graphic. So it's a great way to repurpose content, and you know, see if there's a way that you can turn, you know, a Twitter post into a LinkedIn post, right? So getting the most out of our content there too. Does Grammarly have a free option or is it only paid? I feel like at one point it had a free option. I'm not positive if it still does. If anyone knows that, that'd be a great plug there.
It does have a free option. And just so you're aware, if you use the free option, it's going to annoy the heck out of you.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Well, cool. Well, if anyone has any other questions, like I said, we'll share these slides for sure on our resource library, and those will have my contact information. And of course, Pearl always knows how to reach me as well. But I really appreciate all you guys' time today, and the opportunity to speak with you all. I think, you know, social media can be pretty daunting, just approaching it, especially if we're not on there too often. And so, you know, hopefully this gave you some really great kind of foundational information, understanding about the platforms and how we can use them to achieve our larger goals, which, you know, of course, are making our communities better, right? And, you know, building our economies and helping folks out. So really thank you all for the work you're doing all across the country and for the opportunity again to speak with you all today.
Thank you so much, Nick, for all of the resources and knowledge and insights you've just shared. I know I learned a lot. On the back end, Jess, Sarah, and I are all messaging about how we can get Grammarly and how we can use these insights. So I'm sure the rest of the group is as well. So thank you so much. As Nick said, all of this will be available. The slides as well as the video recording of Nick's presentation will be available on our website in the coming days. And as always, Nick put his email in the chat, but my email, feel free to reach out to me and we can definitely connect you to Nick. But thank you all for joining. Thank you, Nick, again for being here, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.
All righty. See y'all.